The movie begins with Edward Douglas, a United Nations negotiator, adrift with 2 colleagues in the vast Java Sea. They have been struggling to survive after their plane crashed into the ocean days earlier. With their supplies dwindling, tensions rise as the trio fights over the last remaining bottle of water. The conflict escalates, and Edward's companions, driven by desperation, draw knives and fatally wound each other. Their blood quickly attracts a shark, which devours them, leaving Edward as the sole survivor. Now alone, Edward drifts for several more days, weakened by hunger and dehydration, teetering on the brink of death. Miraculously, a boat passes by and rescues him. On board, he is cared for by Dr. Montgomery, a veterinarian. After days of recovery, Edward is finally able to speak and asks about his location. Montgomery informs him that they are on a vessel named the Ambach Panari. When Edward tries to contact his organization, Montgomery advises him to rest due to his fragile state, noting that the boat has no radio. He promises, however, to arrange passage to Timor. When they arrive at Montgomery's destination, an isolated place known as Morris Island, Montgomery suggests that Edward accompany him ashore, promising access to a radio on the island. Edward agrees, and Montgomery unloads a cage full of rabbits before leading him to a farmhouse. There, Montgomery delivers the rabbits to a pen and then takes one, kills it, and prepares it for Edward's meal. The rabbit, previously named Peter, is now Edward's dinner. Montgomery then takes Edward to the main house, briefly excusing himself. As Edward explores the room, he notices certificates bearing the name of Dr. Morrow, a Nobel Prize-winning geneticist who vanished years ago. Edward recognizes the name and realizes that this island is where the reclusive doctor has been conducting his controversial research. Suddenly, Edward hears music and sees a girl dancing outside. Intrigued, he approaches her and learns that her name is Isa, Dr. Morrow's daughter. Their conversation is "hurt myself" short when Montgomery returns and ushers Edward away, leading him to a guest room upstairs. During their walk, Edward mentions Dr. Morrow's obsession with animal research, but Montgomery remains tight-lipped. After being locked in the guest room for his safety, Edward eventually escapes using a pocket knife. As he wanders the house, he hears a strange moaning and follows the sound to a laboratory. Inside, he discovers medical equipment and incubation chambers filled with developing fetuses. Disturbed but curious, Edward continues exploring until he witnesses a bizarre and horrifying scene: a female human-animal hybrid giving birth, attended by several doctors. One of the doctors, a male hybrid, notices Edward and removes his face mask, revealing his animalistic features. Terrified, Edward flees, but the hybrids chase after him. He encounters Isa again, who offers to help him escape the island on the condition that he never speaks against her father. She leads him to the shore, but they are spotted by mutant guards. Forced to retreat into the forest, they encounter various mutant creatures and the mutilated remains of the rabbit. Eventually, they meet a more friendly mutant named Assassin Mon, who agrees to assist them. He guides them to a mutant village and introduces them to the Seer of the Law, a goat-human hybrid who preaches a code of conduct that promotes human-like behavior among the mutants. Before Edward can fully grasp the situation, Dr. Morrow appears, revered by the mutants as their father. Montgomery arrives as well, holding Edward at gunpoint, but Morrow instructs him to hand the weapon to Edward, who panics and fires into the air, alarming the nearby creatures. Morrow then uses a remote control to subdue them, revealing that he has implanted devices in the mutants to maintain control over them. Morrow reassures Edward that he means no harm and takes him back to the main house, where he introduces his 4 children, Wagdi, Azazello, Emling, and Isa. Morrow explains that his genetic experiments aim to create a higher being, blending human DNA with animals. Although the current mutants are imperfect, Morrow believes he is close to achieving his goal. Edward expresses his disapproval, deeming Morrow's work unethical and illegal. Later, Morrow invites Edward to join the family for dinner. During the meal, Azazello serves Morrow a dish containing a half-eaten rabbit, which Morrow finds repulsive, as he forbids the consumption of meat. Isa then mentions seeing a mutilated rabbit earlier, which she believes was killed by a leopard-human hybrid named Lo Mai. Morrow decides to hold a trial for Lo Mai the next day and invites Edward to attend. Before dawn, Edward attempts to escape the island by boat, but his plan is thwarted by humanoid rats that infest the vessel. The scene transitions to a trial, where Dr. Morrow gathers all his creations outside. He begins by reminding them of the island's rules and then accuses someone of breaking these laws. Feeling exposed, Lomai, the accused, charges at Morrow in a fit of rage. However, Morrow manages to subdue him using his remote control. Despite being knocked down, Lomai continues his aggressive attempts, leading Azazello to act impulsively by fatally shooting the creature, shocking everyone present. Morrow reprimands Azazello for his hasty action and instructs him to arrange a proper funeral for Lomai. Lomai's body is publicly cremated, but not immediately disposed of. Later, a human-hyena hybrid named Hyena Swine comes to mourn his fallen comrade. While examining the charred remains, he discovers a strange device embedded in Lomai's arm bone, the control implant. He then checks his own body and finds a similar implant, which he painfully removes while roaring in agony. With this newfound freedom, he vows to end the suffering and spread the message to the other mutants. In the next scene, Montgomery is seen injecting a mutant with a mysterious substance. Edward, curious, asks about it, and Montgomery explains that in addition to the implant, the creatures are also controlled through regular drug doses that prevent them from regressing to their original animalistic states. However, Hyena Swine refuses the injection and, when confronted by Montgomery, reveals his removed implant, causing Montgomery to panic. He quickly sends other mutants after Hyena Swine, who manages to escape into the woods. Later that evening, Edward tries to contact the outside world with the help of Ling, but their attempt is interrupted by Montgomery, who sabotages the radio and enlists Edward's help in searching for Hyena Swine. Meanwhile, Isa goes to her father, worried about her own physical regression. She shows him her transforming features, her canine teeth becoming fangs, her fingernails sharpening, and her pupils taking on a feline appearance. Despite this, Morrow reassures her of her beauty and urges her not to worry. That midnight, Hyena Swine and his newly liberated mutants break into the main compound and confront Morrow in his living room. They demand to know why they aren't fully human. Unaware that they've removed their implants, Morrow attempts to calm them down, but they reject his authority. Realizing the danger, Morrow tries to use his remote, but it fails. Hyena Swine then reveals the removed chip before leading the others in a fatal harm on Morrow. Edward witnesses this from a distance and fires a shot, scattering the attackers. In the aftermath, Morrow's body is burned, and his children, except for Azazello, mourn their father. Azazello, however, feels no sorrow for Morrow. In this emotional moment, Edward approaches the grieving Isa and offers comfort. She confides in him about her transformation and pleads for his help in retrieving a serum from the lab to halt the process. Meanwhile, Azazello steals Montgomery's fire weapon and joins forces with Hyena Swine, who plans to take control of the island. Their first act is to burn the only boat, preventing anyone from escaping. Azazello approaches the group, offering to lead them to the island's armory in exchange for their help in removing his implant. Meanwhile, Edward goes to the lab, only to find it in chaos. Montgomery, now unhinged, dismisses Edward's request for the serum, claiming he has destroyed all of it. Alone in the lab, Edward discovers samples and a file with his name on it. As he reads through the documents, he uncovers a startling truth. Morrow intended to use Edward's DNA to permanently stop Isa's regression, finalizing his experiments. Elsewhere, Montgomery, now fully insane, sits on Morrow's throne, proclaiming himself king and encouraging hedonism among the mutants. Azazello arrives and kills Montgomery in cold blood. Hyena Swine's group captures Edward, while Azazello brutally assaults Isa, ultimately causing her death. He then drags Edward to Hyena Swine, who praises Azazello's work before turning on him and killing him, having deemed him no longer useful. Hyena Swine then tries to force Edward to acknowledge him as the new god of the island. Edward, under torture, cunningly suggests that Hyena Swine can truly become a god by eliminating all his followers. Easily swayed, Hyena Swine turns on his comrades, shooting them down one by one. However, during the chaos, Ling triggers an explosion, causing Hyena Swine to drop his weapon. Seizing the moment, Edward grabs the fire weapon and corners Hyena Swine, who retreats into a burning building and takes his own life. With the threat finally neutralized, Edward prepares to leave the island on a makeshift raft. The Sare of the Law, Assassin Mon, and several other peaceful mutants see him off. Before departing, Edward offers to return with professionals who could create a serum to stop their regression. However, the Sare insists that they no longer want outside interference, desiring instead to return to their natural state and end their creator's work. In the final scene, Clips of human wars and conflicts flash across the screen as Edward reflects on the savagery that exists within humanity, concluding that mankind is the true beast. And that's a wrap of this movie review. Share your thought about the movie in the comment section. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to support this channel. Thank you for watching.